Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Blockchain Advisor. Today, I am honored, I'm thrilled, I'm edified to have George Doherty, the mayor of the OEX pit for the Chicago Board Options Exchange. You know, George there's something about the bigness of his personality, his sense of humor, his goodness, his kindness about being in the pit, being an incredibly active trader in the OEX pit, and then moving on to the NDX and I think S&P 500 pit down the street at the Mark and Steel, we used to call it at the CBOE. But George, more than anything, he started at the CBOE in 1975, just a few short years after the Black-Scholes model was introduced, and which would really let the CB off to an amazing start in modern finance. So George, thank you for being here with me and sharing your history with us.
I mean, you go back a few years too, but I go back with Joe Sullivan, Joe Kipp. I go back with Eddie O'Connor. I mean, these guys were the godfathers of everything. And they actually brought us through it all. I'll give you a quick history.
Yeah.
I came from the streets of Chicago, basically, went to college because I wanted to make sure I got out of the hood, per se. And I graduated with a degree in finance, loved stocks all my life, but I didn't want to go to New York. So where am I going? I'm not going anywhere. But I had a connection that wasn't a connection, but turned out to be okay. And that was Gene Cashman. I don't know if you remember the name, major league player downstairs in the wheat and corn.
So Gene Cashman hired Frank Gill, who was an ex-Chicago cop, whose son Frank Jr. hired me to be a runner at Shearson. So if it wasn't for Cashman and Company and dirty Chicago cop politics, I wouldn't be here where I am today. But go ahead.
Wild?
Yeah.
Small world. Yes. So my dad's friend's mother knew Cashman's mother, and you know how they are. You better get George down there and talk to him. So I go up to his office, and this was the Board of Trade. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm a 23-year-old kid, basically 24. And I walk into his office. I mean, it was like the salt of the earth. George, I thought I was like his cousin. Come in, George. Right then, he just got his cleaning in. He's got all his shirts up there. He's putting them on for a meeting. And the guy next to him, believe it or not, a guy that befriended me right away, John Ruth. He was his business banker. And believe it or not, he was at the Continental Bank for a while. I'm not sure he stayed there, though. It happened at the Continental Bank. But anyway, they turned me on downstairs. There was nothing going on, no hiring at all in 75. They didn't know what to do with me, really. So John goes, George, in its infancy, you want to get down to the options market. I go, I'm in. So I got all these booklets and stuff instead of reading about them. And he sent me down to Kern and a couple of places. They were boutiques. They were not getting in really to the options market. They're kind of facilitating their Board of Trade guys, really, right? So unbeknownst to me, it doesn't really work out, but it got me my interest in options. And so I ran into a guy. I served him a martini, and I said, man, I love options. Guy says, you're kidding me. Take my card. Go down and see Warren Shore. Warren Shore is at A.G. Becker. I walk into A.G. Becker. The old floor, it's suspended.
Right.
And you're on the 7th floor there. And it's kind of unique, but I mean, a kid, I don't know what was going on, but I was determined to do the best I can to get myself in there. So Warren Shore, he comes up to me. He's the manager of A.G. Becker. He goes, we're hiring. He goes, but at the time I had a bum foot. I had like a semi-cast on it. He goes, when you're better, come back and see me. I said, I'm not coming back. It's fine. I'm following you right down there right now. And he starts laughing. He goes, what? I said, I'm not leaving. He goes, really? Come on. When he signed me up, that was it. Started as a runner, clerk, broker, and then went on my own as a broker. And then you know what happened in 77, right?
Wait. You were on your own? You were on as your own broker clearing through A.G. Becker? Where were you filling paper?
No, yes, I was. You filtered yourself in, depending on how good you were. And I had a couple, bonuses because I started the football program, the basketball program, and all this. So all the managers loved me.
Oh, of course they did.
And I was aggressive as hell. These 20-year-old kids had no clue what was going on. I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying, man, I was on a mission. And when I was a runner, I took everything I could get, and these kids didn't even care.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, remember Brian Novak?
Yeah.
He was one of the phone clerks. There's Mike Barry. It goes on and on.
Sure.
But there's a horde of people at A.G. Becker. So through A.G. Becker, they taught me everything, all the classes. And you keep graduating with them until they think you're ready. And then they went out with their own brokers because the options exchange exploded. And the commissions that they were giving up, right? They wanted to keep them in-house. And it could service their customers better. Anyway, I'll leave you there. Any more questions? You're out.
All right. So
Can't
you were a broker. That's crazy. So you were a broker for Becker. Then someday you wake up, you said, you know what, forget this. I'm going to be my own market maker. So you came.
No, it didn't. And I don't mean to interrupt you. The reason that was I was in 50-50 with a market maker, but my brokerage was so good. I worked in Bally, and Bally at the time was incredible.
Huge. Right.
So what happens? They double list all the stocks, right? Amex comes into the fourth front, and I'm kind of screwed. I'm still making some markets, but the market makers are dying. And I had all my business was market makers. I didn't have any retail other than A.G. Becker. I only got paid on what I, solicited. So that died. And so guess what? I don't know if you remember, this was the best of all time. Houston Oil.
Okay.
Houston Oil came up, and I went in there with A.G. Becker. That was the best of all time. I got to learn. All my customers came from Houston Oil. There had to be 400 market makers in there, 1,000 up, and I'm not kidding you. Really good. And the liquidity, I had two clerks, the first time Becker ever had two clerks. One was just filling me with orders, and the other one was trying to get my spreads in order and then wiping the sweat off my face. But Houston Oil, then I went to Bally. That's how it really happened. I went to Bally, had a lot of clients. And then the Amex dual listed came in and went kaput. Thank God the OEX came around. And I came out of nowhere because I wasn't really wanting to know what I could do. I just had an innate feeling for the market. Mm-hmm. Billy, I don't even use spreadsheets. I never hedged one option in the OEX, never once, unless I was puking and I had to buy a call up or sell a call down, whatever it was.
Right.
I've never, ever hedged in there. So I don't know how to explain it. That's just, you're a different animal. Everybody in there was so brilliant. These options traders, they taught me so much and focused me. I wouldn't need a spreadsheet. I just watched them.
Right. That's crazy. So here's an interesting story. So what got me introduced to options was my dad. My dad was a machinist, and he owned a very small business. He barely kept a hamburger patty on the kitchen table. But his friend was a maker of cams, and for like post-World War II machines, as a cam maker. And he made like 80 grand buying at the money options in Bally. I'm like, 80 grand? Dad, that's like 10 times what your salary, his earning was. And so I took a class at New Trier West on how to trade options with Randall Shackner, who's a broker with David Noyes. But my dad's friend Pat was, a European immigrant, basically, that just learned and taught himself options. But it was in Bally that he made all his money during the Pinball Wizard, the Who or whatever, like that whole thing. And so, well, Billy Halloran also, I think, and his brother were in Bally, if I'm not mistaken, in Warner Communications. So correct me if I'm wrong on that. But the old floor was something else.
Yeah, the old floor it was wild. I mean, there was some people made some great money in Houston Oil and in Bally because no one's seen anything like it other than IBM, which was too big at the time. It was just, just keep yourself away from the AI machine. But honestly, the floor was it was a magnet to really, I want to say, brilliant people. Mm-hmm. Brilliant people. I mean, as you know, business models that they found. Look at Black and Scholes, long-term capital. Sooner or later, you step out of bounds, and then what happens?
It blows
Okay,
up, right?
yeah.
So how
But
did?
I'm saying options.
Okay, so let's go back. You made the statement about being just really intuitive, and you were focused on the market, and you only traded like one strike, but you were super active. I mean, you would just pick one strike, and you just beat that back and forth. Like on average, how many contracts a day would you say? An average. Pick a time period. Whenever you want.
20,000.
How many?
20,000.
20,000 contracts a day.
Bill, I was at my limit April 1st. I was at 10 cents a contract April 1st. They gave me rebates after that. Honestly, it just was amazing.
Wow. So how did you like? Tell me about your personality or your hobbies or your interests or maybe your family background. Like, how did you feel what was going on? Would you consider yourself an emotionally intellectual guy or mature? Like you could feel the panic in the pit. Maybe you were trading technical analysis. Maybe you were just doing. Like, how did you get that?
Innate. Honestly, I didn't develop it myself. I think I developed it better because then the more you use that quality, you get better at it, I think. That's just me. But honestly, I came from the streets. I mean, I don't mean streets like I was in the alleys, but I grew up in the streets and I could recognize trouble, not trouble. I got involved with a lot of people, whether it was baseball, football, whatever. You read people, and I was blessed with it. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. And honestly, never ever used a sheet in my life. I didn't know the vowels. What used to get me in trouble was the cash spread because I'd be beating this thing and nothing would go down. Spoons would go down, but I'm getting my head beat in.
Oh, that's
So I
great.
said, wait, time out. Give me some help.
So you had mentioned something about having in a 50-50 deal with a market maker. Could you reveal who that was, or
No, I don't want to get into it.
that's
It was
fine?
okay. You know what? And believe me, I was at that time, Bill, I was making a lot of money as a broker. He wasn't keeping up with the Kool-Aid, okay? And it was starting to get to me. So anyway, it was just, I just let it go. I don't have any hard feelings. Life is life. And you go on with it. I mean, I met some great people down there,
Yeah.
intelligent people. And there's some people that, they come, anything that has to do with money, you get some greed, right?
Yeah.
As we all know. And you find they're not always good people. But anyway, right? I have no qualms against anybody that I traded with down there. And you know what? If you think about it, Bill, it was as clean. What do you think? 99.9 clean? Once in a while, you'd catch a rubber baron. But other than that,
So
it was pretty clean.
I mean, listen, I had a backer. I was in a 60-40 deal, 70-30 deal for a while. And then once again in the the early 1990s it's a very, very long story and kind of boring. But so let's go back to the OEX pit. All right. So tell me about your memories of like the big events. Like we had the big gap opening in like 1986. We had the 87 crash, 89 mini crash, first Gulf War, second Gulf War. Like, what stands out in your mind about your trading career? I mean, just tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was the best or the worst of that time period?
I think the best was that I never was afraid to go into the pit at any time, whether it was the crash or whatever. The crash was a little bit, it brought a lot to, it brought the water up a little high because I wasn't using spoons to hedge anything. So you had a hope that you were right? So I had an out trade during that period of time, okay, in there. It was, I mean, when I tell you this, it was big dollars. And it was a 30 lot. And actually, I'm sorry, it was a 100 lot of puts.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy DK'd him. And I took him upstairs, but I had to hold the money for 3 months before I got into court.
Sure.
I had witnesses. It happens. People forget, but there's nobody in the pit in the crash, right, Bill? Only 10 people trading.
It was only like a 10. It was the spookiest thing I'd ever remember.
Right.
The lights seemed dimmer that day. There was only a few people in the trading pit, and I had a HUD trade that I had to cover too. But at the same time, I was 27. Like, what did I know what I was doing? I was too stupid to like leave the pit like many other people did. I'm like, there's got to be opportunity here. And I made, I mean, I went debit during the crash, but I made it back relatively quickly, for a box trader. I mean, all things considering, but yeah, it was a pretty crazy time for a guy in his 20s and like you probably in your 30s.
I just got married. It was 3 years into my marriage. But, if you think about it, I don't know. It was probably, excuse me. Um, I was like the velocity guy. I would sell out the 100 or whatever, 200, whatever, and it would just go from the box guy like you to the butterfly to the hedger.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I mean, not that you're doing that. But I'm pumping out orders like no tomorrow. I mean, I had two clerks.
See, I don't ever remember you as a broker. I just remember you as market maker. So
Well, that
when,
was back in late
right.
70s. Yes, and then I went right into the OEX. It couldn't have been more than a week or two old. That was when Billy left A.G. Becker and went in there on his own. Billy McGowan. Remember Bill McGowan?
I'm not sure. I'd
Okay.
have to think about that.
Anyway, he passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. But long story short, he was an A.G. Becker guy, and he was doing phenomenal, independent brokerage.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, George, there's so much liquidity in here. And he goes, you know how to feel the market? And the pit wasn't that big. But then it got bigger. You got Ralph Peters coming in there. You got all the other boys coming in there, right? It was an interesting time to see the expansion. And the OEX at the time was the only, I don't remember when they coincided, but that was the only time we had the right to get the 100 open and have the exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? And then they allowed us to have the early exercise and all that. And that was the only way to do it. But then all the ARBs came in. Well, I don't tell you that. You work for some of the best of them.
Yeah. I didn't know it at the time, but yeah, that's one thing I probably regret is not asking more questions with the people that backed me. It's one of those.
No, but Billy, you were successful. Stop it. Don't look down because.
No, I'm not looking down. I'm just looking back and saying, what could I have done better? Right. I could have asked a few more questions. I could have been a little bit more nosy, right, rather than just kind of doing my own thing. And anyhow, wow, that's really interesting.
Wait 1 second. Don't forget those sunglasses that look in the rear view are gone. Okay, they were first sold.
I know. I get it. All right. So you're doing really well. You moved out of the hood, whatever that was, into River Forest, Oak Park area.
Back. Yeah, I went to River Forest, whatever.
And so, but you were a big trader. You had a big dog. I seem to remember you saying you had a Great Dane that just ate 40 pounds of food a day.
Boris. I still got him. He's in my can. I got a can with Boris in it.
Oh no, your cremation.
All three of my dogs are in my room here.
Oh gosh, that's crazy. All right, so let's go back then. In terms of your work ethic, I mean, I seem to remember you very rarely leaving the pit. Did you sneak out and play golf during the summer, or you were always?
No, very seldom. It would have to be a tournament. I never, Bill, you know how it is, man. You think you're going to miss something, right? And at least I did.
Yeah.
And so very seldom did I ever take off work. Now I would take off for a vacation because I was tired and burnt. And Susie was saying, we got to get out of here. You're driving me crazy. Let's go on vacation. So we did stuff like that. But no, I didn't take a lot of time off. I took, I had my 20, look, we didn't eat very healthy there. You'd run down the series, eat as fast as you can, shovel it in and get back in the pit.
Series food was the best. I ate there practically every day for like 30 years. It was the closest thing to home cooking you could find in the loop.
Because all the servers were Irish.
Because the Irish are so well known for their amazing food, right? Thank God the Greeks were in charge of the food.
They were cooking.
That's right. Oh, that's really funny. So, I mean, you primarily were a call guy, right? I don't remember you trading a lot of put options. What was that all about? Like, why did you just? Because puts were, the at the money strike was just as popular as calls and puts. And then as the market would rally, which it basically did from 82 or 84 all the way until whenever, you would just kind of say, all right, this is options more than $3. I'm just going to go back to the one that's $1.50 or whatever. Like, what was that? How did you decide which option to trade?
It's a good question. I got to tell you, I didn't pick one. I wasn't prejudiced at all. I figured that, at that time, you're just in the pit. It's spontaneous.
Mm-hmm.
But there was ones I had seen before. It wasn't like I was going to change my mind. It just happened. But I'd go from one to the other. But the puts, it's a good question. Never like to sell puts. It's the craziest thing. I could sell calls and watch them go, but puts, I want nothing to do with them. I learned a long time before. Remember, you make a call for a buyer and they come a long time coming, but you can always get one to sell you.
Right.
It may be high, but someone's going to sell you something.
Right.
That's the way I've looked at my life, all my life, believe it or not.
And so, George, I don't remember there being very many brokers that stood by you. So a lot of your order flow, your activity was really just being very agnostic and trading with almost everyone in the pit. I seem to remember Gary Garlick from, I don't know, maybe he was a Becker broker. I don't remember who he was with.
Shearson.
Shearson, right. He was maybe.
And Pete File. Yeah, they were across the aisle. You know how they split it? Remember when they split it?
Yeah.
There were a couple of guys that came back, but then he had Hunt behind me up by Magoo.
Right.
But I didn't have any brokers by me. No, to tell you the truth, my favorite friend was the Quotron operator.
Yeah.
Believe me.
You leaned against that machine and you had a phone with you all the time. You made it. I seem to remember you being very active on the phone. I don't know if you were just calling people to schmooze with, or were you just.
I wasn't schmoozing. I was probably yelling at somebody that they traded through my bid.
Okay.
And then I'd be hot. And then I'd make them change it. Whatever it was, you could get excited in the pit, okay? It's no problem. You had those shifty little characters, man, moving things around. I didn't like it, so that was right by the Quotron. Those kids were so good. I mean, honestly, they took so much abuse and some jerks. It used to kill me. But anyway. Yeah. And how about the guys behind the Kathy and all the gals and the people behind the desk? Not the desk, the
board book.
The board, yeah. So anyway, that's pretty crazy though. Back then, you had a few crashes, and then finally, paper dried up. And I was talking to Billy. What's his name? Billy. He became.
Yep. I just lost you. All right, so Billy,
I'm trying to think of his name. He became, he was first option guy. He was our president, our leader from the traders upstairs. And I kept bugging him. I said, what are we doing? The OEX is dying. Man, it was dying, 89, 90. So he started getting things working, trying to get the NASDAQ, but you know how tough that was, right? But the OEX was one of a kind, always was, always will be. And I think that's because of the early exercise. Okay, people played it for a lot of reasons. And anyway, I don't know, Bill. Like I said, I never had a spreadsheet. Didn't know what the vols were. Didn't care what the vols were. Didn't bother me. All I wanted to do was going to trade something. And as you said, there's 500 people in that pit. Yeah. I didn't care who I traded with.
So when things were slow for me, I would kind of walk around the floor, go in between all the pits to see if there was anything going on that was kind of like a quiet secret. So I never was afraid of being a boat person, going into like maybe the RJ Reynolds takeover or Northwest Industries or whatever. Did you ever go into the equity pit, or you went right from the OEX to another trading floor?
I went right to the NASDAQ. But honestly, I would go scoop in with, remember United Airlines?
Yeah.
Yeah, I scooped in there, but you know what? I kept thinking to myself, I don't want to be a boat person. Not that, and I don't mean that in the wrong way. These guys have put a lot of money in it, and to go in there and think you better just make sure you're going to trade everything. And I'm not going to go in there and sell a ton of puts. You know that. I'm only selling a put after I own something. Okay, another put. I just didn't do it. So I didn't think it was fair. That's why I didn't step into those pits. The only time I ever traded is you traded you traded boxes, but those that traded the theta in the premium and collected it was in the NASDAQ. That was the thing you had to do. And let's face it, you make money selling options. That's what they're made for. Right. Hedging, making more money. You know, I don't have to tell you that. I'm just, and so, you know, it was a graduation for me into another realm of trading. And you got to remember, in the NASDAQ was $4 wide, the basket, $4 wide.
I don't
We had
remember that. I don't remember. I don't have memories of Nasdaq other than when it started. It was absolutely insane. I don't.
94,
What year was that? 94.
94.
And then you had the .com, that whole internet thing where, my gosh, Nasdaq was just insanely busy, and I
It
can't even.
was. Well, the only thing was that the spreads between, you know, Microsoft had a half point spread. Think about that. Well, it's not like it is today,
Yeah, like a penny wide.
16th or a penny wide. I mean, $4 wide was the spread on the sheet. So if you wanted to buy a basket, it was $4. But the boys upstairs wanted us to make the market within $2. So we had discussions on that. It was many, many times. If you want it to flourish, you gotta give us the 4 points. It won't work. We don't have any futures.
Right.
We have boxes. I'll give you a story. The guy, nobody wanted to do. I went to New York. Okay, here I am in New York,
Okay.
and I need people. All I want to do is buy the basket on the offer or sell the bid. I'm not trying to jerk anybody around. This is your market. You guys put that out there for me, and I'll do it. Everybody, Bear Stearns, all of them looked at me like I had funny feet. Like, no way. They said, okay. One guy said, yeah, we'll give you a call. That was, you know, that didn't work. And I didn't know this. It was years and years later after it happened. And for the life of me, I'm getting a brain cramp. Who was the big Ponzi scheme in New York? The big who?
Bernie
Madoff. That's where my baskets came from.
No way.
Yes. I didn't know that. I left in 97 to go to the Merc. All my baskets that I was doing was going through him. And I didn't know that. The guy I used in New York was using him.
Unbelievable. What a small
that's
world.
how it happened. I couldn't believe it.
So if you wanted to buy a basket, Bernie Madoff was selling it to you?
Yeah, just buy whatever stocks. I had a guy, really good, not good friend of mine. He turned out to be a good friend of mine. And he was in New York. And he was a broker upstairs. And he goes, George, I got a guy that'll do this. And that's, you know, let's face it, he was the king of the NASDAQ, believe it or not.
Uh-huh.
And we know why, because he didn't have to worry about it. So you know how I could flip things, right?
Yeah.
This will blow you away. I'd have Tommy on the phone here. By the time I put it down, he had the other phone up saying, sell that basket. Oh, no, buy that basket. He goes, done, done, done. You couldn't get it done that fast unless it was Bernie Madoff, right?
Right.
I didn't know that. But anyway.
Boy, I'm going to stop and think about how he could have been so active, because the basket, like you said, is $4 wide, which means that the midpoint of profitability is somewhere $2 one way or $2 the other way. And he had to be able to trade that basket in between that market. And so, I mean, we had a lot of experience at the SPX and the OEX, but he just had to somehow transmit that over to the NDX side.
I remember there was gapping holes between what you had, depending on how much data you had, right? A lot of times I had too much myself. And I had a wonderful, I started in there with Susquehanna. Mm-hmm. Brilliant people. And that was it. Either Susquehanna was looking for shore and I was rowing, or I was looking for shore and he was rowing.
Right.
But, you know, they just were superb people. Anyway, I don't know how to explain it. You know, I get red teed all the time. So there were stocks that I never traded because it was stupid to trade them. Mm-hmm. You only have to have a complete basket, 300 or 400 shares, but to get them in and out, it's ridiculous. So I'd only do like incomplete baskets, but they were full baskets.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. There was always a little bit of slop left over after the basket. You couldn't get it. Maybe it was those companies that, even if they moved wildly, would not affect the overall value of the basket, all things considering.
And I give a lot of credit to Billy Cousins and Tim Mullins. Mullins was a star. That guy, he used to take so much abuse from people on the floor, you know, because he had to come down and tell them, I got red tea problems. You got to get in, out. And it's the last thing you want to do, tell a market maker that thinks he's big.
Tim Mullins was with who? I don't recognize that name.
First Options, Goldberg.
Okay.
He was a partner at First Options. He got bought out by, he was part of Dylan Reed. Hang on, I
Okay.
want to
Yeah, yeah.
turn this off. Sorry. He
Tim
was
Mullen.
Dylan Reed. Is it Dylan Reed? You know,
That name sounds
it'll
familiar.
affect me. No, the boys. They bought first option from Goldberg. I mean, I'm sorry. They bought first option, bought Goldberg. The group, I'm trying to think of the name of them, came in and they had to have some more administrators.
Mhm.
And as people came and went, they got new administrators. And Timmy Mullins came in, and he was a Goldberg guy. He came in and he went along with them, became a partner with them. And then they got bought out by Goldman Sachs in 2001, as
Right.
you know.
I remember
I'm
that.
trying to think of the company. I think it was Dylan Reed. It might have been Dylan Reed. Very sharp guys. They came in and said, look at George, we're taking over Goldberg. They met me and they said, we like the way you trade.
Yeah, yeah. We like your
Come
20,000.
on, they look at my commission sheet.
Yes.
Anyway, it was all good. But I got to tell you, there's so many people I could just go back.
When you started in the NDX, how many people were there? I mean, boom, the bell opens, just the two of you. Wow.
Then you had the floaters come around. And honestly, when I tell you this, maybe they lasted a day, maybe two. They'd be gone because they couldn't hedge it. And then we had people come in there and we had time spreads. Okay. So, you talk about bellying up to the beast. Oh, this is too expensive. Sold. Okay. They come in the next day. It's 100 points higher. Sold.
No way.
I'm talking, and I'm not kidding you. Sometimes it was, after they sold it, sometimes it was 200 or 300 points over where they sold it. They came in, finally they got out. Yeah, they didn't go tapioca, but they were pretty close to it. It was a family group.
Tapioca. Yeah, I still use that term around the house all the time. Tapioca. All the language, just slang of the trading floor. Yeah, he blew out, tapped out, went tapioca.
Then people came in, when they really got in, when they got to futures, right? But prior to that, there was a few people that were working in there. I give them credit. But actually, it was Susquehanna. There was a guy named Mark Dooley who was incredible, really good man. And we became really good friends. Really, really, Susquehanna, just so brilliant.
Mm-hmm. And so
anyway, then I was making money in that, but with the theta that you could collect, and I don't mean this in a bad way, you could sell, there was so much more to do that you could really make this cooking. I said, okay, let's get a cooker in here, a guy that can do butterflies, who can put this spread and get this premium where we can collect a lot of money. And we did. And I went over to learn how to trade. It's 97. I went over to learn how to trade the S&P 500. And we started with 4 guys. We brought 4 guys over. And off and on and off and on. After that, it doesn't matter what happened. But that's when I left that. I never went back to options.
Okay.
Except for, poking around off floor. But, the S&P, I was there when they first started the NASDAQ future at the S&P. That was wild.
You probably made the first trade, knowing you.
No, you know what? No, I didn't. But I got to tell you, it was, everything's been good. Yeah. It's been a nice life. But you know what? The aspects of trading and how I traded, you couldn't teach anybody how to do it.
Okay, let me ask you this question then. So you did back a guy who was your clerk. I think he was your clerk for a while. He got put on a seat in the OEX pit. Then he went over to the mercantile and did amazingly well.
Kevin Gleason.
Yes, I didn't want to bring up the name, but if you did, that's
great. Bring him up, Kevin. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy. Love Kevin. Did you back anybody else, or did you?
Well, I didn't back. We brought him over, but we had there's things that went wrong. Hard to explain what went wrong with the DPM I was associated with. I don't want to get into that.
That's fine.
We'll let bygones be bygones. Kevin ended up going with Stafford.
Oh, I didn't know that. Stafford was my first boss at the CBOE.
John, I love John, the old man. I loved him.
I got to get his contact information because all of the phone numbers he gave me are no longer working. But do you stay in touch with Stafford or with Kevin?
No, I don't. I don't know anybody. I try not to. I don't. And I mean this, Bill, in all sincerity. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be talking here. I try to leave. It's neat. Susie's got pictures of me in the pit. I got the Sun Times. And I said, those are good days. I'll keep them. Yeah. But you know what? I don't. You know what? As the rear view tells me, if they would have just given us to 07, 09, where it was just an auction market, what a lovely time it would have been.
Yeah.
But
It was still a good run.
unfortunately,
It was still a great run.
oh, it was a good run. Think about it. 75. I mean, I look at the movement of just myself from a phone clerk limping into the trip. Man, it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then just to tell you, I'm playing basketball at Warren Shore now at halftime. You know what I mean? I know how to brown it up in athletics. Okay. I was the quarterback on the football team,
Right.
basketball. I made sure, and everybody, Warren Shore, Russ Rule, who were the other guys at A.G. Becker? A.G. Becker was pretty cool. Anyway, they helped me out. Then they got bought out by a French outfit. Can't remember. Anyway, but how about the other ones, Bill? Lowe's and trying to think, not just Payne Weber, but some of the smaller companies that started down there were just bought out or
Right.
kind of went.
Somebody somewhere, and I probably have one laying around here. It used to be a trading card that you had mentioned, Lazard Printing, Lazard.
I got like 10 of them.
Has all the listings of all the clearinghouses and their clearing number, all in alphabetical order. And yeah, you're right. It's even the Board of Trade. We saw the same thing, this incredible consolidation as the market got bigger. You know, these small mom and pop places could not either afford or were not willing to borrow or lend the whole nest egg to manage these traders. So it's, the evolution of the way businesses is. It doesn't really matter whether it's Walmart or whatever coming in and scooping up, small.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. One evolution, I thought it ended up being okay, but in the beginning they started with that OSS. The clearing would come in automatic. They would clear right away these automated accounts, and they would come in, and they had gals at the machines, and these automatic things would come out. And when we had the bear market rally, I believe it was 81 or 82. I mean, they took these strikes, Bill, 15 to 25 higher, and this is when everybody was trading teenies. How many you want? 200. Okay, I got a week to go. I'm talking bloodbath. So that's when we had our first fight with New York, and that's how we lost that business.
Really?
New York said to Ed Neal, who was the president at our time, Ed Neal, you're culpable for all this. You guys could not keep up with the paper. He said, no, you guys couldn't. He goes, our back office is still working. Your back office can't handle. Anyway, you know how that worked out, right? Who has the money? New York, right? Mm-hmm. So they shut us down completely. And then I had to go on my own because there was no more business. But that was the deal. It exploded. The business was incredible. And from then on, I don't even know what the volumes were. It was getting into the 10 millions. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, I remember I met my wife. She worked for Sheck in 1984, and they were doing, well, in terms of stock shares at a New York Stock Exchange, maybe 30, 40, 50 million, 60, 70 million share days. She wouldn't even come home because it was so much old-fashioned paperwork to do. I've got a stack of buy and sell tickets around here somewhere, but everything was done by hand.
I met Susie at Payne Weber.
Really?
So, things, there's always something good about the options, right?
There's only two people I know married somebody from the floor. That's me and you then, apparently.
Really. Payne Weber, she come out and give me those long pretzels. Remember the pretzels?
No.
Those gigantic pretzels. You don't remember those?
No, I don't.
Oh, my God. Where have you been hiding?
Who brought Susie down to the floor? How did you?
I have no idea. But I noticed her. That was all I counted.
And you, of course, were your handsome, athletic, debonair self, great sense of humor, big smile.
Right. So she took a hook and said, I'm out of here. I'm not falling for this smoke.
Oh, no.
Actually, do you remember a guy named Tony Giordano?
Yes.
He introduced us at one of his famous parties on, where was it? On, it was on the Italian places on, right by the highway and I can't remember.
Como in? Wait,
Como in? Yes.
So Tony Giordano was an IBM pit. Wasn't he a big broker with Bobby G?
Well, he had his own brokerage, and Joey Farrar worked for him.
Yeah.
And then, I got my brother down there, Danny. He worked for First Stop.
Right.
And then we got Tommy down there, and he worked for Tony G. So did Danny. And then my brother Brian came down.
Hey,
and they all worked a little bit with Tony G. He was a colorful person. I loved him.
Yeah. Yeah, I was afraid to walk into the Sign of the Trader because it was that they had this dark entrance cave-like way with like rugs on the wall, and I went in there once. I'm like, yeah, I don't belong here. So I
No, these guys, you know what they used to call Monday, right?
nope.
Pro night.
George, I grew up in a bubble. The whole trading floor scene was a complete culture shock for me. I went out maybe one or two times with some of the people from Cowan down the street, but literally every night, just go home, just turn around and go home because it just I was not built that way, you know.
Would be both. Never did. I'd be at the health club or I'd be hitting golf balls.
Mhm.
I didn't. It
Excellent.
never got into me. I look at you. There's so much more to. First of all, you wanted to be competitive the next day anyway. You know, I just, it never, honestly, when I tell you this, I think maybe once or twice after baseball, after we won, would go and back, and those people would be still there at 7 o'clock at night. And I'm going to have a beer and get on the yell and go home. And I just never saw the point. And the people, how about the Sign of the Trader? When they closed that thing, that bar was a block long and it was full of booze, man. It was just like, I've never seen anything like it. And those were the grain traders.
Yeah, yeah. No, I never did that. It just, just kind of a loner growing up, and that's the way I stayed most of my life.
I
Um,
know.
well, this is great, George. Listen, any other stories like post, SPY, mercantile, or any other? Do you trade a little bit from home? Do you sell a couple of straddles, and then go play golf and come back again? Are you
You know,
teaching classes?
there are some secrets you keep to yourself, right, Bill?
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and I got to tell you,
Yeah.
hats off. You got to reach out to Jimmy Mayday. This guy would have some great stories too. He used to stand behind me, not behind me to be behind trader,
Hmm.
very intelligent trader, very sharp. And Lloyd Cassidy was there too. You know Lloyd.
Lloyd's a
Uh,
godfather to one of my kids.
oh, God bless. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the guy. Who else was there that maybe, I don't know. Those are the only two upstanding guys I know that I would tell you. Well, you don't have to. You already know.
Well, like we had just said recently that I never really kept in touch with people from the trading floor. I've been the administrator of this Facebook group now for about 6 or 7 years, and it's becoming this obituary notification page, which is kind of freaking me out. This is
Oh,
what's leading me to have these conversations because I want to capture these incredibly important moments, your big smile, and just everything about this great time that we had down there. It really was a real blessing to be able to do that.
well, it was a joy to go to work. I mean, I wanted to go to work. It wasn't like a drag. In the worst moments, I got to tell you, I don't think I was ever sick a day in my life down there. I was probably sick, but I wasn't sick.
Mhm.
Not sick enough not to go to work.
Did you drive or do you take the commuter
I
train?
drove early when I worked for A.G. Becker because they had to go back. When I was working for them, I didn't make a lot of money. When I first worked for A.G. Becker, I used to go to one of those sub accounts to pick up my check every 2 weeks. It was like $98. So what do you
Right.
think I did? I went right down the street to bartending school, and
Uh-huh.
that's what I had to do. I bartended for like 5 years while I was down there trying to make money.
Okay, so who did you serve the martini to? I'm looking at my notes. You served a martini to somebody who got you a
It was a
job.
vice president of A.G. Becker. How about it? It was the best martini I ever served.
You're darn right it was.
It was, man. And I took that thing, that card went in my wallet. I never let go of it.
Oh,
I
that's
went down
great.
there the next day.
Yeah.
It was cool. That's the great thing about meeting people and what you do with it, how you touch other people's lives. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm glad Kevin was very successful, and there was Wayne. Do you remember Wayne, my other clerk? I'm not
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
what quite happened to him.
yeah.
He was a good guy. I had a really great clerk at the Mercantile too, and he's doing very well in Florida. He is I got to tell you, you just hope the best that will become of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Personally, and you watch their kids grow up and whatever. I don't know. It's just cool. Here we sit looking for the sunglasses and the rear view.
So now you and Susie are just retired. I mean, do you?
Yeah, we keep it that way. Back and forth from here to Carmel and back.
Uh-huh.
It's probably the best place. I don't know how to explain it. Pebble Beach, Carmel. It's not the snooty part about it. It's the most beautiful thing. Sue's more like an artist. She could go there and she could do the walk down to the ocean and back and forth 2 or 3 times a day.
Wow.
Well, I mean, once is enough for me. I mean, I get it, but I'm not that artistic. I've got something else I got to do, like
Right.
whatever, I don't know.
Right.
But she's cool. She's an artist when it comes to that stuff. Beauty.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yep.
Well, man,
So yeah, how many
George,
kids do you have?
say that again.
How many kids do you have?
We've got 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, and 3 grandchildren.
God bless.
Yeah.
Wow. You're right up there with the Maydays and the Cassidys.
You could probably hear them crying downstairs right now.
They
it's
want
it's
time to
4 o'clock.
eat.
It's nap time. You know, they
Oh,
get a
nap
little
time.
they get a little cranky around this time. But George, I can't tell you like how much I love talking to you. I mean, your smile, your disposition, you are always literally the best guy in the pit, and you brought a lot of laughter and joy to us because when I was panicking, my face was red trying to hit a bid. I'd say, you know, you'd say up in the J section. I go, who? And you'd say Joe. And I go, Joe who? And you'd be like, yo, Joe Mama. And then that would flip me over into Chernobyl mode and just meltdown because you, with a straight face, would just jerk everybody off in the kindest way. So you
Well, you
always,
know, I got to tell you a story. Jimmy Mayday's got the best story. I used to do it quite a bit too. When the little Snickers would move things around where you know that they shouldn't have been because it was a better bid or better offer, I would offer something below the bid or the offer, higher than the offer, and everybody would go, yeah! And I go, up yours.
right.
I'm not selling you nothing. That was funny. But anyway, you had to do it. You broke
Yeah.
everything up, and then we all got along again.
Yes,
But
for sure.
it was funny. What are you going to do? I mean, you could just, it was an intense, I mean, do you remember? I remember during some of those periods, Bill. Well, because I never took a break then when it was really in my head. Because I had the blood was just, I don't even know how to explain it. I had to go down on one knee and just kind of get, I couldn't yell anymore because I thought my head was going to blow off.
Right.
And I would just sit there. I mean, I was okay, but it was numb. Then I'd get back up, I'd be okay. But the noise level, the action, it was pretty profound.
Well, you and I think we're opposite in that ways, and that is, you know, I would just trade the opening range. I'd go upstairs, and because things were so slow, and I didn't want to get myself in trouble, so I would just, you know, play Tetris or take a nap. You know, maybe I had a couple of free weights up in the office, and you know, I don't know, just do something until 2 o'clock, right when the bonds closed, and then the market would pick up again. So I did not inherit the work ethic that my dad had, or you, like where he never left his machine. He was a slave to his Harding and Brown and Sharp machines from, you know, pre-World War II or whatever. So again, I know I'm not supposed to look back in the rearview mirror. I get it, but you know, I could have put my nose to the grindstone a little bit more. And like most of the guys, they stayed there and didn't even they didn't even go pee. They just stayed there all day long, right? And
Well, sometimes I had to go, but the personalities that you dealt with, how about it?
oh my gosh,
They were like,
David Shorvitz. I still got like bite marks on my arm for where he chomped into my arm one day for
who was
whatever.
it?
David Shorvitz,
No way.
the biter. Yeah, I was selling something and I crossed his imaginary line in order to teach me a lesson. He just chomped down on my arm, but.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of crazy characters. Hunt Hamill, one of the funniest guys, but with a diaspian, dark kind of sense of humor. Just really crazy people, but good people. Honestly, I tell everybody in the interviews that we chat. You know, if you didn't have a good reputation, nobody traded with you. It was like the ultimate Yelp review. 1 or 2 times you stuck it to somebody, that's it. You're done. You're not getting traded. Nobody's trading with you anymore. So it's really important that you kept a clean nose. And again, your reputation down there was just stellar.
Well, I you know, when it got slow, I made sure it got quick. I developed a little bit of something because I didn't want it to slow down.
Yeah.
Let's get going here.
Right.
I get some of the
you were
big
half
dogs
minute
up
and a
there.
half from like 11 until 1.
Well, then I started training with the spool guys. Then I know I could get the guys going. I'd hit David or Rev or those guys. I'd hit a few of those guys, and they had to offset it, so it moved things around a little bit.
Good for you.
It was fun.
It was fun. All right,
It's been
man.
a gas bill.
This has been almost an hour. This has been a classic, really not one of my favorites so far, and would love to, you know, if you get a few more memories and you get any other ideas, or maybe you connect me with Jimmy Mayday or, you know, some of the guys you think would be interesting.
He's a pretty private guy. Mayday's a pretty private guy, but I wanted to mention him because he is really you talk about a good Christian, salt of the earth, lovely family man, Love the guy to death, and his family,
Okay.
and his wife. I mean, look at it. He goes all the way through. The kids are great. Terry's unbelievable. Anyway, I don't want to bore you with all that, but I'm telling you, Bill, it's. I didn't know whether I really cared, but it was. I love the chat anyway. Yeah, who are you going to chat with? I can't chat with the guy I want to play golf with. He hasn't a clue. He hasn't a clue what we went through.
No, I know.
And it was pretty. I mean, the guy. How about the guy? The guys used to kill me. I have to say this. I'd just be done with 200 or 300 options. The guy goes, "Can I have one? Can I have one?" I go, "I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one, okay? But leave me alone for a minute. I'm trying to get my count."
Yeah. Oh,
it was horrendous. But you know what? Everybody was trying to make money.
yeah.
I never make fun of anybody.
We're trying to figure it out in real time. We really were.
You know, it's as we know, Bill, it was a moment in time.
Amen. It really was, George. It really was.
Yes. And
Yeah,
you know what they do
really
now? The reason I don't, whatever I don't do, you don't fool with the AI because it'll be IOU.
Yeah.
I don't want to play. Those computers are too smart for me.
Amen. Well, you know what? I still have a feeling, though, that if we were, a lot of guys had a super difficult time transitioning from being in the pit to trading online, off the floor, screen-based training. 15, 20 years they've been at it, and they still haven't really figured it out. There was something special about being in the pit, and you could really had that sense of feeling the market changes when panic was ensuing, or just the normal ebbs and flows of, you sell the opening, you trade the range, you fade the range, all that kind of stuff. All those little, buy the invasion was always like little tidbits, noon balloon, and we're always coming up with these little axioms to help us with our trading. But I do remember.
Well, one other thing I'll mention, I don't know if you had these guys, I don't know if you teach them or not, but you don't have to do it anymore. But I remember the first thing coming down into the pit. First, hardest thing to do is to take a loss. And the next thing was an open outcry. People come in, they get laryngitis. They don't know what to do, and they don't want to open their mouth.
I almost puked the first time I opened up my mouth to trade. Really, I was so nervous. And I knew that I didn't know what I was doing, and everybody in the pit knew I didn't know what I was doing, but you still had to do it. And the heart, you could just feel the lump coming up your throat. And, I borrowed 20 grand, which is like 200. I was 22 years old. I borrowed like 200 grand in today's money to buy a seat that a guy backed me. And, after a whole year, I made $800, and I was thrilled. I was a slow learner, but once I figured it out, I did okay.
Yes, you did.
Typical electrician. Like my dad was, again, blue collar family. I went there. Super arbitrageur. No, not super arbitrageur. I mean super conservative, not wanting to take risk. And generally, there's that risk reward where the more risk you take, generally the more money you make. So for me, if I made a couple of $100, I made $1,000. I was like, wow, that's really good. I'm going to go home now because my dad didn't make that in like 2 months. So. My perspective.
Where did you go after the OEX?
All right, so I left the OEX so that's when the internet stocks were really taking off in the late 90s. The guy that backed me brought me up off the floor, so I was working with Larock at Ecotech. So it was me, Norm Anderson, and Jeff Katz. We're managing about 40 people on the floor. We had Rays, everybody's trading, we're doing well. The bubble burst in 01, 02. We hit the low in 03. We recovered nicely. And then what happened was the computerized trading really took hold, and we couldn't compete in our two-sided markets as market makers, as DPMs, right? And so we sold the book of business to Barclays, I think, in 2010. Then I was a risk manager until 2012, and then left to do the investment advisory firm.
Very good.
Yeah. It's been great.
It's amazing. At least you got a bid for the DPM.
Well, I guess if zeros.
Well, I'm just saying.
I don't even know what the DPMs went for. Like that was not my part of my job. It was very difficult making money in a world where computerized trading was just beating us to the punch.
Right. I think the big sales were Tesner, right? He's made the big sale, and I think I can't remember, somebody else sold them for above the 15s. Those were nice sales, but. It is what it is, right?
I'm going to try to get the Rev, Jim Brumback. I've been in communication with him. I haven't been able to get in touch with Joe Clement, who's somewhere mysteriously up north in a small town, but I made a little bit of contact with him. So I'm trying to brush the dust off the old Rolodex and have conversations with really the people that were pillars, in the trading pit. And it's been a blast. I've had so much fun
Yeah.
doing this.
Well, it's good for you. Bring back memories. I appreciate it, Bill.
Yeah, you're welcome, George. Again, I'm gonna hit you up again if you are. We're gonna meet for coffee or tea. Okay, hot tea.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to have a glass right now.
All right, George. Thank you again. Hey,
God
quick
bless.
question. Normally, what I do is I give everybody an opportunity to shamelessly promote a business, your restaurant, a non-for-profit, charitable organization, anything you want. Is there anything you want to talk about? Your wife's artwork? Maybe she's like on Pinterest or something. Or...
There's tons of artwork, but I'll just promote her.
Okay.
Okay. That's it.
All right, my friend. Peace.
Thank you. God bless.